who had more on this story.
BC's housing minister made it clear communities across the province are expected to meet the government's housing targets. The 10 cities on the province's watch list are Abbotsford, Delta, Kamloops, District of North Vancouver, Oak Bay, Saanich, Port Moody, Vancouver, Victoria, and District of West Vancouver. Final targets for each municipality will be released later this summer. The cities will have 6 months to come up with plans to meet the targets, or the province will bring in an...
So Housing Minister Ravi Kahlon says that these targets are intended to increase the housing stock by 38%. But as of right now, it still feels that that's not enough. So, for instance, recently on the Early Edition show, we heard from 2 guests. One is a social worker. The other one is a first responder who's been working as a first responder for 16 years. She makes a good wage. She also lives with a partner who has a good salary. And they say that despite being in a relatively good situation, they still cannot afford to buy a home, and it's caused some mental health issues. So, unfortunately, it's an issue that does persist, and we'll wait to see what happens in 2024. But I want to go back to you. What's a big story for you, Amy?
Well, I think another story, you know, in my sort of daily life, I handle the traffic and the weather for the Early Edition. And so for me, certainly the impact of Vancouver Island's main Highway 4 being shut down over the summer, it was devastating to locals and to the tourism industry that was sort of just in recovery after COVID-19. Here's once again our provincial affairs reporter, Mira Baines, letting you know about this closure.
The Cameron Bluffs wildfire continues to burn as highway crews assess damage from falling rocks and trees. Firefighting crews continue to work on the 2.5 square kilometer fire, dumping water from the lake.
It looked like lava coming down the mountain. Very scary. Then lots of action here.
The fire is adjacent to Highway 4, which has been closed for about a week. The only paved route in and out of many Western Island communities, including Tofino, Ucluelet, and Port Alberni. BC's Highways and Infrastructure Minister today provided some degree of certainty on when Highway 4 could reopen.
We expect the highway to be fully closed for at least another week. This is necessary to allow crews to remove dangerous trees and other hazards, to make any road repairs necessary, and to set up protective barriers that may be required to keep people safe when the road is reopened.
Highway 4 was closed after an accident along the route and poor conditions. The ministry's tentative timeline shows Highway 4 opening to single-lane alternating traffic the weekend of June 24th. A full reopening isn't expected until mid-July. The ministry says the timeline will be dependent on weather conditions such as rain and slope stability. When the road does reopen, traffic is expected to move slowly.
I don't expect those are going to be as long as taking the alternate route, but I do want to warn motorists that there will be some delays as we move towards this phased reopening.
So far, supplies are getting through an essential detour route, but businesses are suffering.
We've just fully staffed up for the summer, and now I'm kind of having to cut back on hours and kind of play it by day.
Concerns are growing over lack of tourism, which is a key economic driver for Tofino and nearby communities.
A lot of seasonal staff are not eligible for EI, so if this continues for a lot longer, I really do have great concerns around some of the frontline staff here in Tofino.
Fleming says the province has reached out to the federal government to get help for financial relief for local businesses as the closure continues. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
And of course, I think that just really highlights how vulnerable island residents are with just one main road for that east-west transportation. And Lawrence, we also had issues with ferries quite often, and that was just further isolating people on Vancouver Island. And, we see that as well with floods and rock slides, just how easily communities get cut off and are not able to have access to those supplies they need. But, as we're mentioning, we're just sort of doing a recap of what's been happening this year, and We would love to hear, what had an impact on you? What stories really resonated? What impacted your area? Let us know at 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can always email us at bctoday@cbc.ca. And just want to make sure I'm fully clear on this, that the full reopening of Highway 4 was on August 31st, but it's not unusual for there to be closures along that Highway 4, construction, rock slides, high winds. So this is certainly an ongoing issue. But moving on from that, what's next for you, Lawrence? What do you got?
Well, unfortunately, the news doesn't quite get better, because the
No.
other big news story, and this is one that made international headlines, was the fact that BC had the most expensive and destructive wildfire season on
It
record
was
this year.
incredibly devastating.
Exactly, and more than 2,200 fires had been detected. Almost 25,000 square kilometers of trees, bush, and grassland were burned. One fire of note was the McDougall Creek wildfire in West Kelowna. The wildfire destroyed nearly 200 properties across the central Okanagan. And what we're going to do here is we're going to hear a clip from the West Kelowna Fire Chief, Jason Brolin, who addressed a UN delegation on climate change in New York earlier this year.
My wife and daughter left town. I stayed behind. That was the plan that we practiced, and now we were doing it. Some people made it to the lake, their only option to survive in the water. They were rescued by a boat. A burn victim walked into the fire hall. The toughest decision a fire chief can make is to ask his people to put their lives on the line. At 2 a.m. that morning, I went to the line to be with my men and women. We made tough decisions. The fire eventually grew to 14,000 hectares behind my community. The weight of putting your people in harm's way is something that we prepare ourselves to do, but I haven't stopped thinking about that decision since. When the fire behavior we experienced came to town, firefighters should have been killed. But instead, we saved an entire street of homes with a crew of 8 and garden hoses. And that wasn't just once, it happened in dozens of locations for 3 days straight.
So that was West Kelowna Fire Chief Jason Brolin. You can kind of hear in his voice there how much that meant to him. And I think a big concern, and we've been hearing about this for a while now, it isn't a matter of if there will be wildfires this summer, it's a matter of how prepared should we be. And so that's something we will keep our eyes out for in 2024.
Yeah, and a lot of talk about preparations, throughout the year of how we can mitigate the damage, in the winter and those wetter months. But certainly it's really ramped up the concerns across the province. We're going to take a call now from Basil in Vancouver. Hi, Basil. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, of course. What news was really resonating and important with you this year?
Well, that's exactly what just the last fellow that was on about the wildfires. The wildfires, the floods, the terrific winds we're getting, the havoc the environment is causing for everyone, and I'm really concerned that we and our politicians, everyone has to do everything we can to change that environment and try to make it much healthier for our children, grandchildren, animals, and every living thing in this world. And that's the most important thing, because if we don't do that, we haven't got much of a future, regardless what else is happening in the world. Our future is really dim. So that was the biggest factor that really influenced me this year, of all the havoc that's happening because of the environmental damage we're doing.
Very much agree with you, Basil. And it does feel especially dire as we're heading into a new year, that we really need to step things up. It weighs heavily on a lot of people.
I would guess so, yeah, because it affects everyone.
Yeah.
Even our little babies that are born today, what kind of a world are we leaving them if we don't try to do everything we can? Everyone, every politician, regardless what party they belong to, wherever they are in the world, that is the most important thing we have to do, stress, if we want any kind of a life here in the future.
I agree with you, Basil. Thanks so much for joining us, and I wish you and yours the best in 2024.
Yeah. Happy New Year. Thank you.
You're welcome. All over the province, we had another year of devastating loss, and that was due to the poisoned drug supply. It is the third year in a row that more than 2,000 people have died from the overdose crisis. And 2023 has already surpassed the 2022 numbers, with over 2,039 British Columbians losing their lives to the toxic drugs. Our CBC host, Leanne Young, did a deep dive this year looking at safe supply.
So we're just about to walk through to the downtown east side, and many people would say this is the heart of BC's drug crisis. It's one of the poorest neighborhoods in the country, and I don't want to add to the stigma of this community in the sense that we're coming down here to talk to them about the drug crisis, because there's so much more going on here. It really is a community, but they have been overwhelmingly affected by the number of people who have died from drug deaths, and so I want to hear from folks about what they think about this new law. So let's go down and have a chat. Do you think this law right now, it's like 2.5 grams, that's legal? Do you think that'll help?
Honestly, I do think it's going to help. I've noticed ever since the decriminalization of it, like society as a whole has sort of looked at it less harmful in a way. Like the fact that we have open insights in places like that, I think that society actually prefers us to have these places so that it's not on their doorstep. You know what I mean? They'd rather try to blow. If it's not in their neighborhood, they don't need to worry about it. You know what I mean?
Do you know what 2.5 gram looks like? Like how much would that be?
Okay, hold on. Okay.
So what is that?
Quite a bit of benzos in there, maybe, I imagine.
And then 4 of these.
So 2.5 grams is 5 of these little bags?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. How long would that last?
Yeah, how long would that
Not
last?
even. Probably,
Usually lasts about 4 to 6 hours, maybe.
depends on how much you do. That would last, probably half a day.
Half a day? We're from CBC. We're here just talking today about the drug decriminalization law. Did you guys hear? So like 2.5 grams legal now?
I think it's enough for the day.
I heard half a day.
Yeah, it's good for a day.
Yeah.
It should be an ounce. Anything under an ounce, if you're a drug dealer, you're like in any serious capacity that they want to regulate. If it's under an ounce, I think that's reasonable. But yeah, like a couple of grams would be like a day's supply. But sometimes you get your check and people are going to buy a little bit more than a day's supply. But it doesn't mean that you're anything other than a small-time user, as far as I'm concerned. It's a tokenistic gesture, but it's good. I mean, I'm not criticizing it, but I think a reasonable amount is under an ounce. Yeah.
So do you think that it helps remove some of the stigma around drug using?
Yeah, maybe, but I mean, is this like a national policy it's going to be?
No, it's just in BC. It's a pilot program for 3 years.
I mean, there already isn't really much drug stigma in BC. I mean, I moved from Ontario because of that, but certainly around here there isn't.
Alberta's a lot different than here. In Alberta, you'd be going to jail with that.
But I mean, they're federal laws, so how would they? It would be like a provincial.
Yeah, they've got an exemption from the feds.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I mean, it's a step in the right direction. What they need to do is actually provide clean dope to people. It's they could make a pile of money off of it, and they could save a lot of lives. Like right now, part of the problem is that the people that are making it don't have the proper tools. They have all these resources around here for using it, but people still die because it's not. There's a social stigma about helping drug dealers, right? But what you really need to do is provide proper equipment for the drug dealers that are mixing it all up.
And that's another story that many people in our province are working on to make 2024 have a better outcome. We do have an email as well. Marnie writes, healthcare came home to me this year when my GP retired. Now I am one of the more than 5 million with no GP, and clinics which are supposed to be the answer to all are still closing. More needs to be done by the government. And Lawrence, we covered this repeatedly on the early edition, that this doctor shortage, they've set up this service where you supposedly can get in touch with a doctor near you, but that is not even nearly enough to address the need of so many people without care and without any clinics to go to.
Yeah, absolutely. And we hear especially from rural communities where they were really struggling to find a doctor. And so, yeah, again, it's another example of an issue that was really top of mind in 2023. And unfortunately, it's one that you feel like we're still going to hear a lot about into the next year, but we'll have to wait and see.
And I was thinking about that earlier today when we were sort of compiling these stories and seeing what we were going to continue. And, we think about it was the ongoing fire situation. It's the wars that are being waged around the world, global warming. And these are not going to magically disappear when we draw this year to an end. We will be carrying them through and covering them, I would imagine, endlessly likely once again in 2024.
Yeah, unfortunately so.
It is, but fortunately, not everything has to be, gloom and doom. What was maybe an inspiring story for you for the past year?
Right. Well, definitely a bit more of this kind of a more fun, but I guess lighthearted, bittersweet story. And that's the fact that Christine Sinclair retired from international soccer. She started playing when she was 4 years old. She scored her first goal when she was 16 years old. Today, she's 40 and she's played for her country 331 times over more than 23 years. And, I think it's fair to say that a lot of the news coverage today, we've all heard about Lionel Messi. We've all heard about Cristiano Ronaldo. I think not enough attention is given to the top international goal scorer of all time, and that is Christine Sinclair. She played her last game for Canada on December 5th. It was right just outside the studio here as a friendly match against Australia. We were there. We were a part of history.
And we all got weepy.
We did, yeah. And it was
so incredible to see such an outpouring of just love and respect for such an incredible athlete.
Absolutely. And that's why I think it was fitting that we were there with 48,112 fans. And that's like the largest for a women's soccer friendly attendance-wise in Canadian history.
Yeah.
So it's a huge accomplishment. But for more on what that was like, here is CBC reporter Liam Britton, who took a look at her last game.
Passing the torch. Christine Sinclair finished her time as Canada's women's soccer leader to deafening cheers. Inside the stadium renamed for her for one game. Hours before kickoff, fans were loud. And they stayed loud all night long for the GOAT. At her final game for Canada, Sinclair's soccer greatness was on display. Olympic gold, a CONCACAF title, the all-time international goal scorer for women and men, feted in a pre-game tribute.
We thank you for what you've done. You are truly a national treasure.
That prompted a few tears. When she went on the attack, elation.
Sinclair gets a touch to it. Buchanan in the back post off the bar and knocked in by Quinn.
Her teammates scored the game's only goal. After 57 minutes, she took her final bow, subbed in by close friend, teammate, and fellow British Columbian Sophie Schmidt, another national team stalwart, playing in her last international game.
The final whistle goes on her night.
And when the final whistle blew victory, it was joy and thanks from tens of thousands of fans in the stands and beyond.
Well, she's such a great inspiration for young girls and young women.
It's almost sad, but at the same time, like, a happy feeling to know that, like, she's done so much and that she deserves to all the people that are here for her.
She's just an amazing role model and she has amazing leadership.
A golden memory for a legend in red and white. Liam Britton, CBC News, Vancouver.
And of course, that was obviously such a highlight of the year. And these were just, 5 samples of issues and stories that had a big impact on all of our lives this year. And we will wait and see what the big ticket items are for 2024. I do always sort of think to myself at the end of a year, wonder what weird animal story we'll end up covering. I always feel like there's some strange and exotic animal on the loose.
It was, are you referring to Frank the Tank?
We had Frank the Tank earlier this year. And what did they have? A kangaroo in Toronto earlier as well. So
I'll be looking that up after this. Yeah, we'll see.
Well, thank you so much, Lawrence. And again, I enjoyed working with you enormously all year, and we'll do so again next year.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure and looking forward to it.
All right, take care. That was Lawrence Watt, the director of the Early Edition. And it's a new year coming up and perhaps a new journal. We'll talk about turning a new page for 2024. And that's coming right after the CBC News headlines with Robert Zimmerman.
Good afternoon. The BC Supreme Court has granted a court injunction to suspend a new law to restrict public drug use. The province brought in the restrictions back in September to prohibit people from possessing illicit drugs near playgrounds and parks. A group of nurses filed the legal action, arguing the restrictions would cause harm and death during a public health crisis. Abbotsford police say a man has been convicted of impaired driving for the 21st time. They say that's believed to be the single most convictions for impaired driving offences of anyone in Canadian history. 66-year-old Roy Hyde was given a sentence of almost 5 years in prison for his most recent offense. And ECOM has released its list of the top 10 911 nuisance calls of the year. Topping the list was a call from a person who wanted directions home after attending a Drake concert. ECOM says another person called 911 because they felt it was taking too long for a traffic light to turn green. And now the forecast, a rainfall warning is in effect for Haida Gwaii, and wind warnings are in place for northern Vancouver Island and sections of the Central Coast. Elsewhere on the North Coast, periods of rain this afternoon with strong winds and a high of 10. Highs to -4 with sunshine in the Peace. In the central interior, a mix of sun and cloud with a high of 5. Mainly cloudy this afternoon in the West Kootenay. Some sunshine in the East Kootenay with highs from -2 to +4. In the southern interior, a high of 5 with a mix of sun and cloud. And for Metro Vancouver, Greater Victoria, and the Fraser Valley, mainly cloudy this afternoon with highs around 12 degrees. I'll have more local news at the top of the hour. Now back to Amy with BC Today.
And wasn't that you that got lost coming home from the Drake concert, Robert? You could have just called me for help.
You know I'm not a Drake fan, Amy. I would just Uber, obviously.
Protest too much, sir. All right. Thank you, Robert.
Okay, bye.
Welcome back, and thank you for joining us here on CBC Radio 1 and live streaming on CBC Gem, cbc.ca/BC, and on the CBC Vancouver YouTube page. Now, in the space of any year, you can go through incredible highs and incredible lows. There's moments you want to remember forever, and moments you need help to process and move on from. One way to document it all is through the practice, or perhaps the art, of journaling. So we're asking, do you keep a journal? And if so, what has it helped you to celebrate or struggle through? Call us 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, *690 on your cell phone. You can email bctoday@cbc.ca. And no, I won't make you release any of your diary or journal entries. But joining us now is Marianne Agnew, a happiness consultant in East Kootenay's caregiver facilitator, and she's also a contributor to Fernie Fix magazine. Hi, Marianne. Thanks for joining us so much today.
Hi, how are you, Amy?
I'm doing great. Looking forward to a fresh new year and perhaps a fresh new journal. But, I'll start with, the most basic question. What does journaling mean?
What does journaling mean? Well, it's just getting everything out of your mind that's in there. Things that need to come out, things of gratitude, things of frustration, things that you just need to put down on paper. Or you don't have to put them down on paper. You can record them on your phone. You can do them in any way. I do a lot of things like mind mapping. If I'm not really sure what to do, I just write the word, write the situation, and then write down everything to it. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be writing.
Okay.
You don't have to be good at it.
Well, and I think that is something that trips a lot of people up is as they think, oh, I'm not good at writing. I don't have a gift for it. Or, they might feel they've moved on from those sort of typical, I guess when you were younger, it's all, dear diary, followed by, whatever you did that day or whoever you had a crush on. But it is so much more than that. And, you held up that sort of that mind map, and that to me was just fascinating. So you sort of have one word or one emotion and everything that sort of, I guess, springs to mind from that, such as, love, or I guess it could be sadness or grief.
Mm-hmm. Even this one that I've written about last February was about journal writing. It was probably just before I wrote my article. And it's like, why do I do it? What makes me happy? Get it out of my head. I've got loss and uncertainty, loss and grief. It's a vehicle for communication. It's a vehicle for creation. I often feel like I'm not good enough for so many things, and so I think it's important to get that out of my head. That's not the same for everybody. Maybe someone's just having a hard time even getting out of the house. Maybe someone's dealing with the loss of someone. Maybe somebody's is celebrating like me, the birth of a new grandson this year. It was just one of my highlights.
Congratulations.
I know, and 2 more on the way.
Oh,
so
wow.
Exciting. And spending time with my little granddaughter Annie, and writing a book that's all about her, and just enjoying that kind of time, that kind of creating time with that little human who's got some of my DNA. Those kinds of things just fill my soul.
Right.
Which, yeah.
And those are the things that you do want to remember, and you want to, you savor, because it brings up all these emotions. It brings up a very unique time in your life and in your heart. And sometimes I think with journaling, I'll admit I journaled a lot when I was younger, sort of late teens, early 20s, when you're dealing with a lot of turmoil and lots of highs and lows. But I'm always fascinated every once in a while to sort of look back and see if I can find, on this day 20 years ago, what was I going through? What was I thinking? And by reading it, you can almost travel back in time and revisit those emotions again, whether good or bad. It's always interesting.
Maybe it's not. Maybe you want to throw that out. Maybe you just want to write it and burn it because it's only for your eyes only. In fact,
that's true too.
Things that I do, like I don't like, people always give me journals because they know I journal. This is my favorite kind of journal.
Love it.
Hilroy, like, the cheapest of all cheap things, because then you don't feel like you have to write anything profound. When it's a beautiful journal, it's like, oh, I have to write something beautiful in there. This can only be good things or whatever, because it's too nice to write in.
Right.
I have this thing about paper, maybe it's left over from my mom's Depression era. Like, paper was a prized thing. And I was a teacher, and it was like, paper, it's just costs so much money. And I don't want to wreck good paper, but yet it's paper. I have paper. I have lots of paper.
You can always find I can always find a back of a receipt to doodle on, or something just to get those thoughts out. What are some of the benefits, to journaling, beyond sort of documenting? Like, does it help to process emotions? Does it help you to let go of things in your life? What can people sort of reap from it?
Or it can help you to hold on to things too. Like, here's another example of a journal. This is one that my mom and I kept together. It's one of those little, books that you do the mandalas in, that you color in.
Oh, okay, right. Sort of repetitive patterns and.
Yes, but then on the other side, it's always blank. Use that as a journal. And in that, my mother was trying to hold on to her memory by doing that. She would document everything in there. And when she could no longer write, we would document the weather, the date, all those things, so that she could still hang on to those things. She was a lifelong journaler also. And I didn't even know that really. And so those kinds of things you can just carry on and carry through. And like, some of them you don't want to read again, but some of them you do. You want to go back, and it's not just the date, but it could be just the date. It could be just the weather. Where were you? It could help you in your police file. When you say, here I was. This is where I was with this person this day, because I documented every day.
If nothing else, it could come in handy for a really solid alibi.
It could. But you don't have to do it every day.
Well, and that's true too.
Same one every day.
And I think, I don't know, I think when I've talked to other people about it, they seem to put a lot of pressure on it, that it needs to be this daily thing, that you need to sit down at a desk, as you said, with this, maybe a beautiful moleskin journaling book or something to that effect, where that's a lot of pressure. How can a person kind of start their journaling journey without putting too much pressure on their shoulders?
No, we need less stress, not more stress.
Exactly.
The group that I belong to, the Caregivers Network for East Kootenay Seniors, that I'm the facilitator for in the Ogg Valley, we have a journaling thing. We have journals that we give out.
Fabulous.
And I'm doing a journaling course starting next week that will involve doodling, journaling, getting out of your head, getting it out of your head. How are you going to get it out of your head? It's different for everybody. And we don't need to put that kind of stress on ourselves. If we start it and stop it, oh well.
So be it.
But you maybe want to do it for a trip journal. Maybe you want a gratitude journal. Maybe you want a frustration journal. Maybe you want them all to be different and separate, so you can just toss them or keep them.
And it's funny, I'll admit, I did keep the ones from, when you're having you're a preteen or a teenager, and I never knew what to do with them. And I've sort of mentioned it jokingly to my children when they've been growing up, that, if something ever happens to me, just burn them.
You have to burn them now, because they won't.
You're right. I should. If they're anything like me, I need to burn them now, because I know that they will look in them. But, I think for a lot of people too, that's another thing. They're not sure what, once you get something out on the page, it's real. What do you do with it then? And you don't have to. It's more the process of getting it out of your head, as you said.
Here's another really good little book that really helps you give the gift of yourself, to your children, to whoever, if you just want to get it out of your head. I unfortunately started it in a really nice journal. So I feel
So now you have to keep it.
And I started it like in 2007, I believe. And now, now that's like, a long time ago. I almost have to rewrite it all from the start again. And so I think I will. It's like dedicated to my children. I hope they read it or not. Doesn't really matter. One way or the other, they'll probably say, Mom, I can't read your writing. It's terrible. and that's okay too. It's the gift of where I came from, what I did,
It's how you became you.
I guess it's how I became me. Yes.
Interesting. You said they can't read your writing, and I was wondering if technology has sort of changed journaling. As you said, you'll put things in your phone. I suppose you could even make a video, a vlog, or collect your TikToks. There's all different ways to, capture things through social media or technology. Has that sort of changed the definition of journaling?
I think it has for some people. I mean, I also do it on my iPad. I have a journal section there as well too, but I think for a lot of people, they're going back to old-fashioned ways, the slow ways. Like it's like slow food momentum. I think that the slow writing, the slow time, the taking the time, the mindfulness, not just squeezing it in, but making time for it. Like making time where you do a Bible study, making time where you do some kind of a spiritual thing. Maybe you meditate, then maybe you write. Maybe you found something, a quote that came to you maybe on your phone that morning, and you thought, okay, what does that make me think for the day? How can I write about that? Or do I want to write about it? Maybe I don't. Maybe that's not important to me. It's all good. They're all good thinking things. And one of the things I think that anything you're going to write about yourself is going to be good because it's already about yourself. You have every right to write about yourself and every right to write about your feelings. And to put them down is never a bad thing. Even if you burn it, throw it, toss it away, write it on a scrap, write it on the back of your invoice or your receipt from the grocery store, which is long.
Very long. Plenty of things you can write on it. Yes. We are going to take a call now from Cody and Trail. Hi, Cody. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Amy. How are you? And nice. And I'm a big fan of yours. I watch you. I watch you when you're on the early edition doing the traffic. And all that
thanks,
stuff.
Cody.
And I just want to say Happy New Year and Happy 2024 to all your staff in Vancouver. I just think you guys are wonderful.
Oh, Cody, thanks so much. And
I like
best of the new year.
And I like Marianne have written a book, and I am an old-fashionalist. I don't care for the technology or the I try to stay away from social media because of all the negativity.
Yeah.
There's only so much I can hear about Donald Trump before I want to puke.
Fair enough.
And but yeah, I have journaled before because growing up as a young man with developmental diverse abilities, I'm 37.
Okay.
And I've gone through lots of personal medical problems. Death, I lost my father 6 years ago.
I'm sorry, Cody.
And then I had people were telling me that I wasn't going to amount to anything, like I wasn't going to graduate high school. Well, I graduated in 2005, so 18 years ago as one of 176 kids from J.O. Crow and Trail. And then I went on to college, and then like Marianne, I started brainstorming my book in 2015, and before I even had the title, I didn't even have a title at the time. I poured through my notebook, and I had about 23 pages of notes, and I thought, you know what, this would be a great thing to put a book together. So I approached a lady who had written a book about 3 years before I did mine. It's called Snapshots of a Soul Place, and the lady's name is Carrie Birch. She used to live in Kitsilano in Vancouver a long time ago, and she moved to the Kootenays. So I'm wondering if Marianne can give me any tips on whether or not I should continue the journal writing, and what are the best ways for me to use my artistic talents and my bubbly and unique personality.
Well, I can tell you certainly have that in spades, Cody. Thanks so much. I'll let Marianne answer you now. Marianne, what words of advice would you give to Cody?
Cody, I think you're really well on your way to that. Like, obviously, you are journaling. You are using all your ideas to put your ideas down on paper and to make a book. And I do that too, in terms of my creativity. I draw, I write, I paint, I write. Everything sort of spurs me to that, or the writing spurs me to paint or write or do anything that's creative for you. You know, some people do it in movement, some people do it in art, some people do it in music. And, you know, anything that you can do that's creative in that, just keep on doing it. Your words are already going to have so much power. And I think that you're probably a real asset to your town.
I agree. We'll read an email now from Lisa. She writes, I used to do morning pages, take 20 minutes to just empty my mind, but I've also used journaling to release trauma. I have a gratitude journal with at least 10 gratitudes a day. And more recently, I've started a worry journal, which I write in before I go to bed so that I don't carry anything I'm thinking about to bed. And I think that is something that a lot of people struggle with. Marianne, is that, is something that you sort of could practice at the end of the day, just sort of getting it out there and releasing it before you try to go to sleep with all those thoughts?
Yeah, meditating on that, releasing it all. It's funny that she says that, because I was going to show this first. So Julia Cameron's book,
right, The Artist's Way,
was one of my real inspirations to start morning pages, which is what she calls that. And it's an old book now, but still well worth a read. And people just, once they get into that, they think, okay, what I have to say is meaningful to me, and it's good to just get it out and just get it out of the way. And I like that worry thing at the end of the day too.
Mm-hmm.
Get it out of the way. We don't need to sleep on those things. That's a really great idea.
We just don't need them. Marianne, thank you so much for joining us today. It was just such a treat and such wonderful tips. I much appreciated, and all the best to you in the new year.
Oh, thank you so much, Amy. All the best to you as well, too. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. Take care. Marianne Agnew, a happiness consultant and East Kootenay's caregiver facilitator. And of course, as we've been looking back on the most significant news stories of the year, it gives you one picture of Vancouver, but there is another way to look at the city and maybe understand it in a much lighter way. Our trusty social media editor thinks there are truths to be had there, and I'm talking about the most viral memes about Vancouver. Maurice Katz has been doing some serious investigation into this matter. He is CBC Vancouver's social media editor, and he's here with us to share the results. Hello, Maurice.
Amy, how's it going?
I'm doing well and getting ready to head into a new year.
Yeah. Well,
so much content online this year, amusing, annoying, the whole gamut.
There's just so many to choose from, and I've got a few for
Yes, you've narrowed it down, I understand.
Yes, and you might remember some of them, you might not.
Okay.
Also, just to preface this, some of these aren't memes by definition. The definition of memes has expanded over the last years.
It seems, because it used to just be, it was just a picture.
Yeah, just a picture that you'd share in different formats, but now it's audio, visual, everything.
Gotcha.
So let's get started.
Please do.
One of my favorites, overpriced tacos.
Okay.
I call this the taco drama. So it started with La Taqueria self-proclaiming that they had the best deal in the city.
Okay.
3 tacos for $23.99.
Okay.
Expensive tacos.
Those better be some very good tacos.
Exactly. And so the internet piled on, finding all kinds of other expensive tacos around the city. Taco Fino has a taco for $11. That's a single taco.
One taco.
And so people were understandably very upset.
Yeah.
Led to a whole bunch of viral posts. One of them being that, what's the real best deal in the city? And of course, the consensus was the Costco hot dog and drink combo.
Can't go wrong.
Cannot
go wrong.
Can't beat a meal for $1.50. And also, funnily enough, it actually led to tacos going down in price.
Oh.
Other taquerias looked around and said, well, we have a better deal. And they listed tacos for 3 for $14.99. So there you go.
So the power of social media working for good.
Exactly.
What else you got?
Well, a good one on our TikTok actually garnered 6.5 million views. So we're talking about worldwide viral. This was when a prominent hip hop artist in Canada, Drake, was scheduled to come to Vancouver, and for his first of 2 concerts, he canceled 2 hours before the show started.
That he did.
And understandably, Vancouverites were quite upset. Let's take a listen.
Okay.
I'm very sad. Been here since 6:30 in the morning, so yeah, I'm upset.
I planned this months in advance. My car, my B&B, everything was months in advance. I saved a lot of money, and we got here, and we were so happy about it. And just 2 hours before it's supposed to happen, they give us an excuse that the stage wasn't finished.
So understandably, this led to a bunch of different comments. First of all, the stage being unfinished, still up to debate whether that was
that is a hot ticket for fighting, I find, in this town.
Exactly. And so the comments are filled with Drake song lyric puns.
Yes.
Obviously, I'm upset being the biggest
number
one. And one of the top comments also was that Taylor Swift would never.
Well, Taylor would never. But okay, now that you've mentioned Taylor Swift, I have a feeling that I know what the next viral moment is going to be.
Yeah, and you got it exactly right.
Okay.
The Taylor Swift saga.
Whew.
Wow. It was a big year for Taylor Swift, and Vancouver was no exception.
Yes.
It all started with Taylor not announcing a Vancouver stop in her worldwide Eras tour.
And the anger and devastation that resulted from that.
It was crazy,
Tears.
especially because in the beginning she had announced Toronto first and not Vancouver. So there was a little bit of rivalry there. And it led to some of our politicians, funnily enough, begging for her to come to Vancouver. Let's watch.
Okay.
Ms. Swift, it's David Eby, Premier of British Columbia. I'm not accustomed to begging, but for my own constituency of my loving and beautiful wife and my son, Ezra, please come to Vancouver, British Columbia. We'll treat you well. I don't have to tell you, you're going to sell the place out. And we'll be thrilled to have you out here. Bring your Eras tour to British Columbia. You won't regret it. And like many people, you might even stay.
Well, and then thanks to Evie, or maybe not thanks to Evie, Taylor did announce a concert here in Vancouver, and that started the race to find tickets.
Oh, and that was huge. It's Taylor's taken over.
For about 2 weeks, all we saw especially on my side of the newsroom, were videos of people either not getting tickets, regardless, they're in tears.
Yeah.
So they're crying, whether they get them or not. And yeah, that's the Taylor Swift saga.
It was a big year for Taylor. Okay, so those are sort of the top 3 that are down. What's another pick for top viral Vancouver moment?
This one's actually my personal favorite.
Okay.
It was on Reddit. It's one of the highest posts of the year on there. And a user named, and I want to get this right, the Minister of Gnome Housing.
Gnome Housing.
Gnome Housing.
Got it.
So it's a combination of 2 things that you see in Vancouver. In East Vancouver and Mount Pleasant areas and around the city, you'll see these little fairy doors at the bottom of trees. Super cute.
Okay, I see those all the time. I love them.
Exactly. And on another side, you also see redevelopment applications. So those are those iconic blue fences with those huge signs that said, this area is up for redevelopment. So this user went out of his way to create a little art project for himself and took some pictures. He made a miniature version of the blue fence, a miniature version of that redevelopment application around those little gnome houses.
Goodness.
Obviously, this blew up. People loved it. And my favorite touch of the whole thing is that he even put a little piece of graffiti on the redevelopment application, just like they do in real life.
That is just lovely and hilarious and just so Vancouver centric.
I love
or
that.
BC centric, really. I do believe that you also, and this warms my heart, made a selection for most wholesome meme.
Yeah, and you can't get enough of wholesome memes.
No.
And we had tons this year, but this one was my favorite. Okay. It's called The Friendly Bus Driver. Ying Su was late for work after snow stopped her bus ride. This was earlier this year in March, actually, when we had a little bit of spring snow. Take a listen.
Okay.
Good morning. My name is Graham, and I'm the bus driver. I'm with Ying. We are at a big snowfall. No joke, no lie. The buses are stuck. The buses are ordered not to move. Just to let you know what's going on this morning. And just to verify, There's the message we received on the computer telling us to pull over and wait for the snowplows. So if she's late for work, I'm sorry. There's nothing we can do. There's absolutely nothing we can do. We're all stuck. So hopefully this explains why she may not come in today, but stuff happens. Sorry.
And how cute is that?
That is adorable. And just, you know, people taking care of each other and not letting the snow get them down and turn into, you know, cranky people. So I think that's wonderful.
Exactly. And the sorry at the end is just perfect.
I know, it's so Canadian.
This
Sorry.
went viral all around the world. And of course, people are commenting. Of course, Canadians. Of course.
Of course, they're apologizing for someone and something. Anything else of note out there online?
So I can't do a segment on Vancouver-based memes without mentioning the Vancouver meme king himself, CBus Memes. So if you've ever seen his Instagram, I think he's on Twitter and TikTok as well. He is known for some incredible Vancouver-based content. It's every time.
Every time. Like, it is remarkable. And we were talking earlier that it doesn't just hit, you know, one demographic. I am much older than you, find them hilarious. You find them hilarious. My young teens find them hilarious, and everybody can relate on some level. And you know, it shows no signs of stopping, which I also find hilarious.
No, he's so good. And although he hasn't publicly revealed his identity yet, I've been asking him for interviews. He's so funny, like you said, relatable. And it's kind of interesting because he's so popular now that it's kind of how people see Vancouver and BC in a way. They look at some of his memes and they think, oh, this is what Vancouver is like.
Exactly.
More than the news or anything else, it's the memes. And it kind of leads me into kind of my final point here. Social media, and we talk, it's fun, the Vancouver-based memes, but really it is a representation of Vancouver, the city, the British Columbia, the province.
Yeah.
And with more platforms like TikTok, Reddit, and with a way bigger reach, we've noticed it on our platforms.
Exactly.
Like videos are just blowing up around the world. And that's how important some of these stories can be, even though they're fun.
They are fun, but they do definitely get their point across. Thanks so much for joining us. What a wonderful way to sort of end our year look in review.
Thanks.
That was Morris Katz. He's the social media editor here at CBC Vancouver. And that is our show for today. And the last for the year, a huge thank you to the BC Today team for an amazing year. You all do such great work. And also a special thank you to everyone who donated to CBCBC's Food Bank Day. So far, $2,230,818.61 have been raised. And you can still donate online today and tomorrow. I'm Amy, in for Michelle Eliot. We'll see you next year.